Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
Cheers.
Yay.
So happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you.
I know, I'm going to need a few sips.
I'm not as shy as
Oh, it's not bad.
I went for an above $25 bottle.
Oh, okay.
My girl.
So why don't you start with just telling us about you? Actually, I'm going to preface because people are going to be like, what the f is going on here? Okay, so for those of y'all watching, this is Jess.
Hi.
And she is my ex-boyfriend's ex-wife. We're here today to shed light on domestic violence. So we're going to be sharing her story while also kind of clearing the air and clearing up our stories, telling both of our sides of the story of this guy named Tim. This is probably the only time on this show that I'll use someone's name, but just to shed a light on exactly what happened, how it happened, and how these kind of people take advantage of young, impressionable women. So, tell us about you. Where are you from? Tell us about your upbringing, how you got to Fayetteville to where you are now.
I grew up here.
Okay.
So I grew up in Town, which is, it's now it's kind of blowing up, but it was
Small town, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents were really strict. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. I didn't date. I wasn't allowed to date.
Growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Strict. My sisters now have a totally different set of parents than I did growing up.
Oh, really?
But I wasn't familiar with boys and or anything until I hit adulthood.
Okay. What age is hitting adulthood for you?
For me,
Yeah.
it was like 22,
Okay.
23. I had been taking care of myself financially. Moved out right after high school. Joined the military. Joined the military to go to college. Did not finish.
Okay.
I just, financially, I couldn't hang.
Yeah.
They say it pays your way through. It paid quite a bit of it. And I just decided to work. Found the gym.
Yeah.
I was doing really well. I was in the best shape of my life. I had really, I was coming out of my comfort zone. I was making friends. As a kid, I was so isolated, secluded. I kept to myself. I was really shy.
So not a lot of friends or activities, things like that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I had friends, but I grew up poor.
Okay.
Pretty poor. So, and I grew up with all of these Town. I grew up with a lot of Italians.
Okay.
And I don't
In
mean that in a bad way. Yeah.
Are you Italian?
No, Native American.
Okay.
A lot of my friends had money. So I didn't bring people home. I didn't want people to see where I came from. So there's always that disconnect too. You don't get that same bonding experience that you would with, a best friend that you're bringing home. You're showing your life, and
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Okay.
No extracurricular activities. I couldn't afford to do that. So I guess the first extracurricular I did was the military, and thrown into it.
So you were in the military for how long?
6 years.
This would have been when you were 18?
I joined when I was 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I finished out my senior year and went to boot camp, or basic. Loved
What branch
it.
were you in?
Army.
Okay. I do remember that.
Yeah. When you sign with the National Guard, though, you have to finish out the contract for the National Guard before you can go active. I tried everything. I wanted to go active duty, wanted to be a paratrooper, tried to sign up for every deployment that came my way. My parents, aren't really lovey-dovey.
Okay.
So
Towards you? Or towards each other?
Just in general. I think I'm the only child that got that kind of I'm not as cold. Like I wanted I have a very anxious, I guess, attachment style. I love you, you know, reassurance. I want hugs, stuff like that. I didn't get a lot of that as a kid. And I think that factored into when I met Tim.
Yeah.
Um,
So where I went to college is where she grew up, where you grew up. And so I actually, you know, this is all my old boss's fault, really, because she fired me from working at the tanning salon. I was working at a tanning salon and I got fired twice. The first time I sold her on rehiring me. The second time it was a different girl that was firing me. She hated me. So she fired me because I didn't mop the floors every night, because I thought mopping the floors was stupid when only like 2 people came into the salon. So then I went looking for a job and got a job at this gym in that town. And Jess was already working there. And that's where we met Tim, who was the manager. And so continue. So you met him there before I was there. I don't know how long before that was, but.
Not long.
Okay.
Not long.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. Tell me, like, what happened when you got there and when y'all met?
Well, I loved the gym. I loved everybody there. And then there was a lot of kind of buzz. They were like, you know, we're bringing somebody in new, and he's fresh out of jail. And I thought it was a joke. I was like, there's no way. I was like, you know, I'm going to give him a chance. People like to talk. This man comes in, and he's attractive.
Oh yeah, he was super hot.
He's older.
Was.
Yeah, yeah. I think I had some daddy issues that were rooted deep down in there. We've kind of fixed those.
I see what you're saying. He was a lot older than you. So at the time, how old were you?
I was 21, 22.
Okay, so he would have been 35.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And how do I put this? He could sell ice to an Eskimo.
What does that mean?
Like,
He was a good salesman.
Riz.
Oh, okay.
Is that the right word?
Okay.
He had Riz. Like,
Dude, I don't know. I don't keep up with the terms.
I
Riz?
just learned that one.
Charisma.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Everybody loved him. I mean, the men, the women, Tony idolized him. Mm-hmm. So when he showed me attention, I was like, hey, I was excited.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think that's anyone who's been in a relationship, like an abusive relationship, or I think we all kind of have the same story regarding the grooming, and we all had everyone has a deep. We want to matter to another human being. That's just part of.
Like you want to feel seen.
Yes, thank you. And he was very good at making me feel special right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, looking back at it now.
What would he
weird
do?
in
Like, what
itself.
kind of things did he do that made you feel special, or like that attention that you were like, oh, wow, what is this?
It was indirect, but he made me feel pretty. And I don't think I'd ever seen myself as pretty. You know, I didn't really. I mean, I was interested in boys. I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
But I had never really. No one had ever really made me feel beautiful. No one had. And he just the courting. Mm-hmm. Was. Hypnotizing. It was.
That's a good
It's
word.
like a drug.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah. And had you ever had a boyfriend until then?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it was like so new to you.
Yeah. I mean, there are boyfriends, and then there are people that you date. You know, you take them home. It's. Mm-hmm. I never took anyone home. I never. Mm-hmm.
So how did it go from him just like showing you attention at work to like dating, or like what was the progression?
That's a good question. It happened really fast.
What
I don't
happened like
really-
over the next few months after he got there?
I mean, I think it was kind of, he needed help too. Like he needed a ride.
Yeah.
I gave him rides.
The rides.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And I didn't know there were other people or other girls giving him rides. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know about you. There were several other ones. No idea. And then he started CrossFit. We got to hang out during CrossFit. He told me about his little girl, about all the adversities, you know, he was trying to overcome. And I was like, you know, he's a good guy. He gets a bad rap, or there's a stigma around what's happened with him.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way. Like
I know what I was told, but what do you know about, like, what was his reason for going to prison? Like, what were the charges? How long was he there?
the very first thing I heard was that he had hit another girl,
Oh,
which
I didn't know that.
I'm going to make myself look really bad on this thing, okay?
No. So I'm going to be saying a lot of like, oh, I didn't remember that, or I didn't know that, because we're also like cross-referencing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a lot of like repressed memories from all of this. Like most of it, I don't remember. Like I can tell you what happened, but the details are very fuzzy, probably for good reason. Like my brain is just like, we're going to put that away. So when I'm saying, oh, I didn't know that, I'm either didn't remember or I didn't know. That I didn't know. That's not what I was told. So please tell me.
And that was Paul. I mean, do you remember Paul? Did you ever meet Paul?
I don't know.
Paul had issues, and Paul was the one that Tim was coming in to replace.
I never met Paul, but now that you say that, I remember like Paul's name being thrown around. Yeah.
And Paul and I didn't get along, so I think
Okay.
that's another thing. Whatever he had to say about Tim, I was already like, you know, I don't like you anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he said that he had put his hands on another woman. Didn't say if they were really dating or anything. And I think I just shut him down after that. I was like, you know, I don't want to know. And then I heard other things, like he was an alcoholic. He had gotten drunk. There was a bad night, and he beat up a cop, or I don't know. It was all violent.
Yeah.
Everything I heard.
It was all violent charges.
Yeah. And I never brought it up. I never asked him about it until I'd gone to his house the first time. And even going to his house that very first time, hanging out with him the first time, it was pushing for something sexual.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like you have to, or I have to, or he's going to be mad at me.
Mm.
I don't know if he ever made you feel like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I just wanted his approval, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And why, I can't tell you.
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
all I knew, what he told me, what Tim told me, was that he had gone to a rehabilitation style prison. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but that's what it was like. Not a real prison. It was like a rehab program prison in Fayetteville. And for some reason, there's this particular building that I know, like it's like off Dixon kind of. And I just passed by it today, and he said that was where he was, like where he went. And I still, to this day, don't know what that building is. It could be a freaking post office for all I know. And he was that was his like sentence or whatever, because his charges were like multiple DUIs or DWIs. And because, you know, if you get enough of those, like they do put you in prison if you get like so many within a certain amount of time or whatever. And like maybe he had mentioned like wrecking cars potentially when he was drunk, but there was never any mention of violence or any like real crimes.
Have you looked him up on Court Connect?
No. At that time, I was too stupid to do something like that. Now I don't care.
Yeah, no, you're good. He and I mean, I'm jumping all over the place, so thank you for like bringing me back to like topic. But on that, I ended up going to a court date with him in Springfield, and I got to hear them read the charges. It was so I guess he had a problem with alcohol. You know.
Yes, yes.
And Xanax.
Okay.
He was dating a girl named Abby at the time, and he had gotten drunk and convinced himself that she was cheating on him. And he hit her, hurt her, choked her. The neighbors heard. The neighbors got involved. So he turned to them. I think he broke their door down to get inside. Beat up one of the guys that were in there. The cops come. The taser's not working, and he has assault on 2 of the officers that came to arrest him.
I'm surprised he didn't get shot.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, they were all violent. I mean, and what he told you about the DUIs, that wasn't a lie. He had those too. I actually paid to have his interlock put in the car he was driving. And
is that a blower thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I do remember that.
Because that's the court date I went back with him on. They gave him his license back. I paid to have his interlock put in. He didn't want to use the interlock, so he convinced me to drive that car, and I gave him my car. And I think that's how he was out and about doing God knows what.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's the half truth.
Yeah, half truth. Okay, so I'm trying to draw a timeline here. So you were working at the gym, then he was hired, y'all met, he starts hypnotizing you.
I think it was CrossFit that really we started hanging out more and more with CrossFit.
Yes, because CrossFit was a separate building, attached to the building, and it was very private. Mm-hmm. Because if you worked there, you could go and use it whenever you wanted. You didn't have to be in a class with other people. So the employees would go in there and work out after work, on a lunch break, whatever. And sometimes it was just you and one other person. And he also would do that with me, just to have privacy. Mm-hmm. And whatever his intentions were. But yeah, that. I'll get into it, but that should have never been allowed.
No.
At that, someone in charge should have been seeing that an older felon was working out in a private space with a 21-year-old employee.
And no offense, we were children.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but yeah, just...
Yeah. You were 21,
enough.
22, 23 as this is all happening. I was the same. I was 21 when I met him. He was 36. And I was literally a college student. I was literally, my biggest priority was, being a sorority girl and taking tests. Mm-hmm. That's a child. Yeah. So, yeah, I do want to go ahead and say, this is a predator. This is someone who is very predatory. So, it's also shedding light on that, on, how these men who seem to be charismatic and, like you said, oh, he just got a bad rap or he has a past, but he's a great guy, will use those characteristics as to their advantage to manipulate young, impressionable women. He was also a salesman. And I've been in sales as my career since I was 16. And after I dated him, I told myself I would never date another salesperson again. Did I? Yes. But I told myself that after him, because after seeing what he did, after I sort of came out of the spell and being in sales and being good at it, I know how you can manipulate others to do what you want and say what you want. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's just a tangent, but okay, so back to the timeline. So what happened when I got hired? Were you guys already dating? Were you in a relationship? What was the situation?
He was pursuing me.
Okay.
But I thought it was more he was flirting.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I didn't think anything of it.
You thought he was flirting with you or with me?
I knew he was flirting with me.
Okay.
I didn't know about you until we had a CrossFit party. at one of the members' house for Veterans Day or something, and I saw you pop up on his phone, and I left. Well, I was going to leave him there. I was like, I'm not taking you home. Like, you're not riding with me. And he was like, no, we just work out. And little did he know, like, I could get in his phone, I could look, and there was a lot going on there.
What was going on there? I don't remember. Like between him and I
think he was saying stuff to you.
Okay.
So he was pursuing you the way he was pursuing me. But I think the same day I saw him get out of the car, she was a member too. I think her name was Kara. She had bangs. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's probably so many of them. So
I'm curious because we know that we were both being told different stories.
yeah.
So my observation, like my impression was that, like, I'm just getting hired at a gym. Like, I'm like, okay, cool job. Like, I can pay for and work out for free. And so I'm just working. And then he did start pursuing me. Now, I definitely, from the time that I met him, was like, oh, he's hot. Like, he's charismatic. Like, he has a charm to him. I think everyone felt that.
Yeah.
But I came from a pretty drastically different background than you, in the sense of, like, I had a lot of freedom as a teenager, and was just the way, like, my life was set up. I just had a lot of independence, and I was the younger child, so, it's more lenient than the older one. So, but basically by the time I had a driver's license, I was like out. That's like when I feel like I became an adult, like at 16. So earlier in life, and whereas you were like a little bit later. And I had a lot of boyfriends. Like, I was just out doing whatever. I didn't get into any real trouble, but like, I had some wisdom under my belt by the time that I had met Tim, and I had gone out of a serious relationship the year prior. I would say I was vulnerable in the sense that I was, like, still very wounded from that relationship because he cheated on me. And I was young and, like, just unaware of my, like, childhood trauma and stuff like that. I mean, nobody thinks about that when they're 20 years old. But that probably plays into why our experiences turned out so completely different. Because I was not, I don't know, maybe I seemed like I was aware of who he was, or like maybe seemed a little more in control. But it was the same in the beginning. And then he was pursuing me in the sense of like becoming friends. And I want to say, like, I was the one to start, like, flirting and stuff, and he would always say, like, I'm your boss. So it would just be like at work, like, just real innocent flirtation, like giggling and like, let's work out together, but very innocent. And now that I think about it, it is very in my personality. If somebody says no, I'm just gonna, like, say yes even harder. Like, I don't like rules. Like, I'm a rule breaker. So probably he figured that out and was like, the more I tell her no, or like, this has to be a secret, then the more I was, like, feeding into it. Because I think if he had pursued me directly, almost like how he did you, like telling me I was beautiful or things like that, I would have been like, you old creep, what are you doing? But it was just, it's all, perspective.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. He was smart enough to do it in a way that it was still indirect, the way he was doing with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, to a certain point, it got to a point where I was like, well, what if I don't work here anymore? Will you go on a date with me? And he was like, okay, quit your job. Find a new job. So I did. And then it was quickly, the L word was used. Well, why don't you just move in? Well, my therapist told me that I didn't hear I love you enough as a kid. So I think that's what I was looking for. This person loves me. This person wants me.
He never told me he loved me.
Really?
I never said it either.
He told me all the time that he loved you.
Yeah, he never told me that until way later. Like, we were way broken up and not getting back together. Like, it was way too late.
Yeah. He
And he actually told me that because I didn't tell him I loved him first, that was why he would never like fully commit to me, because he felt like I didn't love him because I never said it. It was just so ass backwards. But yeah.
He used to compare us all the time. I don't know if he did, like with you, when he talked to you. Mm-hmm. But I think he knew how insecure I was, how self-conscious I was, how shy I was. And always, it was you versus I. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be just like you. Girl. I just couldn't figure it out. But it was also on, it was only when he was mad at me. So when he was happy and everything was okay, he was like, Natalie and I aren't like a thing. We're not important. We started a date. She went on vacation. It's over now. And I'll let her know for sure when she comes back. Okay, well, he had already moved some of my stuff in. Mind you, I didn't get to take any of my military uniforms with me. I quickly was told to get out of the military because he didn't like me going to drill weekends, didn't want me around all the men.
Oh, wow.
He's the reason I got out of the Army.
Wow.
And not long after that, it was, well, why don't we get married? Mm-hmm. Isabel wants a mom, and you have health insurance. That was a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all like true, or that's checking like what I remember, because so from the time like things actually happened. So you reminded me of like the rides. I feel like that was when we actually started having any interaction outside of work.
And I think he was telling me you were Dwayne giving him rides.
Oh, probably.
Or Aaron or something.
And I was very, I remember being hesitant to like giving him rides. Like, I thought it was weird at first. But then I think because we were having those like friendly interactions, then I was like, okay, like fine, whatever. And so I do remember giving him rides. And then he was living with Dwayne at first.
With Mike. They were all living in Mike's house.
Okay,
So
yeah, he had roommates. I don't remember who he said. Or Dwayne got him the house, something like that.
That's when I lived with him, is when Dwayne got in the house.
Okay, I could be wrong. But I remember he lived with other people. And there was a night where we had both worked like until closing, and we were both leaving. And he wanted me to give him a ride, but he said there was some excuse, I couldn't tell you what it was, of why he couldn't go home. Like it was too late, or they didn't, like, I think it was that because we wanted to hang out. Like we were going to go like get ice cream or something like that. And there was something about it being too late at night that he couldn't go home. So he had to come to my house, to our house. And I don't know if you were home. Probably had to be. It was like a weeknight.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure
And we were on the couch. Yeah.
We were like, who is that?
Yeah. So my roommates like went to their rooms or whatever. And so we're like in the living room, like watching a movie. And then I had the same experience of like, then almost this like very forceful, like physical, like putting himself on me. But I am very like just strong-headed in some sense. So I was just really like, no, like I don't want that, whatever. But it was just pushing and pushing and pushing. And then it was to the point where it was like, maybe it'll be easier to just say yes, so he'll leave me alone, or like won't get mad. And then you also have in the back of your head, like, this is my boss. So, and there was a part of me that was obviously attracted to him. So then you mix all that together, you end up doing things that you don't actually want to do. And I was definitely saying no. I verbalized no at one point, but that just like, it was like, oh, come on. Like,
I thought you liked me.
Yeah, or I'm pretty sure he said, like, just let me. And then after that, that's when things I kind of started escalating into an actual, like, relationship. Like, we started dating. And as far as you, like, at the gym, we really didn't see each other a ton because you worked super early and I didn't. But occasionally we would be, like, in passing during certain hours. And I definitely, like, just got the vibe, like, okay, she doesn't really with me, like, whatever, but that's fine. Like, I don't have to be at the front desk. And then when I started, I would ask him about it. Like, hey, like, I just feel like Jess doesn't like me, or like something weird. He would just say that you didn't like me because you were jealous. And I always thought,
I was really shy.
I was just like, okay. I just didn't question it. Obviously, you're over there and he's telling you whatever stories. Like yeah, the opposite. And he's pursuing you at the same time. And you're thinking probably the same thing about me. And so that kept us from communicating with each other. You were mad at me and I was mad at you. Or indifferent, or like, just, I should stay away from her.
Yeah.
You were the stronger one. So I was like, I'm just going to do my own thing.
No. But no. No.
So, yeah. So then that escalated. But what you were saying about how he said we were nothing and then you moved in, I did go on a vacation. I went
So Vegas?
Thailand.
to Thailand the summer after junior year.
Okay.
Well, I went home first, I think. I went home and Thailand. Like, it was summer. And he was already acting weird when I was on that trip. And then when I got home was when he, like, ended things over the phone. And it was like a drug. I would literally, I've never withdrawn from a drug, but if I were to imagine what it was like, that was how I felt for about a week. Like, legit, in bed, in the dark, all day, every day, crying. And I'm not like that. Like, I get depressed, but not like, it was otherworldly.
It was different.
Yeah. Like, I thought I was going to die.
And, well, I mean, and you feel like it's your fault. Like, what did I do?
Oh, 100%. Something's wrong with me. What did I do? Like, why does he? Yeah. I legit have told, like, my therapist and stuff that was the only time that I ever actually, I was probably Googling it, but I was asking God, can I die from this? Like, can I die from a broken heart? Because it feels like I'm dying.
Well, it makes you feel crazy.
Oh, yeah. So that must have been when you moved in with him. But I got back a couple weeks after that. I want to say 3-4 weeks.
You spent a couple nights with him, right? For
I
his
don't
birthday
know.
or something? Because
that was before Thailand.
Okay. He asked me to clean the house for him.
Yeah, what's with the cake story?
I baked him a birthday cake.
I know.
Because I had a crush on him.
That's the night you're talking about.
Yeah, I had a crush on him. I baked him a birthday cake. And he was already telling me that he was going to break it off because he had told me about you. I knew it about you at that point. Like, I found out about you. And I baked him a birthday cake. And he was like, well, he's like, I'm going to break it off. Will you clean the house for me before she gets back?
Okay.
I did. I went in, cleaned the house, and he was telling me that, you know, he spent a couple nights with you. I think that's when you came up and got the garage door opener from me. It was still in my car or something.
I don't remember that.
I think you wanted to talk to me.
Oh, I did.
And you were coming into the gym to talk to me at the front desk, and he wouldn't let you, or he wouldn't let me. He came in first or something.
I was getting a garage door opener.
Do you remember that?
No.
You guys were going to the museum, Crystal Bridges. And
Okay.
he had left the garage door opener in my car. And I think you had seen my name on his phone or something. And he called me and he was like, hey, we're on our way up there. Natalie's really upset. She wants to talk to you. I'll just come in and get the opener. Don't worry about it.
I vaguely remember that.
But see, I remember you trying to talk to me. And you didn't seem mad like I thought you would. He was telling me you were upset. You were mad. You were angry.
I was not mad that day.
I think you just wanted to talk.
I remember going to Crystal Bridges. I was in a great mood. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was almost afraid. I was like, no, what? I don't want to talk because I didn't know what was true and what wasn't. For all I knew, you were coming up there to, you know, slug me. I had no clue.
I don't know how to do that. So the cake story was before Thailand. So we were still together, but I was at home. Like I said, that summer I was like bouncing around, and I was driving up the night, I think it was the night before his birthday, like birthday eve, or something like that. Or maybe I was driving up on his birthday. But the night before I drove up, I went out partying. I just went to the club. And I was completely innocent. I had a great night. But he was jealous and he got mad because I stayed out until like 3 a.m. or something like that. And I'm sure from his point of view, I'm in Houston, going out with guys. Like, it was actually a great night. We met some of the guys from, what was that band? Party Rock. LMFAO. Yeah. They were at the club. Me and my friends. And they invited us back to their hotel. We were just like partying with LMFAO. It was super cool. But so that's why I was out so late. And so then I left a little bit later than planned, and he was pissed. And so when I got there, he was sitting at his kitchen table like this, like ready to just like rip me one. And even though I literally didn't do anything, I should have. Freaking rock stars. Why didn't I?
It's not you.
But there was your cake sitting on the counter. And I felt like he like planned it so that I would immediately see it and like get jealous that you were there.
Because I was there the night before.
Okay.
So he had to have pulled it out of the fridge. Because I think I was there when he called you. Because he didn't tell me what was going on. He's just like, hey, I gotta go to the room for a second. And I was trying to listen, and it sounded like he was talking to you. But I couldn't tell what he was saying.
Probably, because he had called me and was blowing up my phone because he was pissed that I went out. Mm-hmm. And so then when I got there, he just was lecturing me. He literally was like, sit down, like being my dad, and lecturing me about like girlfriends don't do this, like just telling me how much of a piece of shit I was. And I don't know how you were when he would do that, when he was like cutting you down, but I would talk back. And I remember I was screaming at him, like you don't get to tell me what to do. Like, I'm 21 years old. Like, I'm not old like you. Like, I want to go out and party. Literally talking to him, like, because that's how he was talking to me. And I remember he said something like, well, you just shouldn't be out until 2 a.m. or something like that. And I said, okay, Dad. And he got even more mad. And I don't remember what happened after that, but we were fighting. And then just kind of like, whatever, call it like a lover's quarrel, like I was there for the week or in town for the week or whatever, went back home. That's when I went to Thailand and came back after he broke up with me. Mm-hmm. And then that was when he was being straightforward that he was not going to be back with me. I knew he was with you, whether he had said that or not. And then I feel like he was playing this like cat and mouse game, because then he had me on the hook because he hurt me so badly and made me think that it was my fault. Mm-hmm. So then it was like he would sort of tease me in a way of like, well, if you can do this, if you can be this way, then like maybe I'll change my mind. Mm-hmm. And that was what I started to think. And it had no boundaries. So even though y'all were together, it didn't matter because he convinced me, well, I'm only with her because you did this. So had you done this, or if you could be this way, then I'll break up with Jess. So it made me think that I had the right to be with him no matter what was happening between you two, because it was really my fault anyway.
Mm-hmm. And you were a lot stronger than I was. When he cut me down like that, I didn't talk back. I just cried. I just cried. And I didn't get that way until way later, after we'd already married. And then he would start saying, well, you're different. You're combative now. You're not who I met before. You're not the same Jess. I don't like this person. I remember there was a time in the beginning I had made him dinner. I think I made like fried potatoes or something.
You were always cooking.
Always.
That was one of the things he would tell me, was that, well, Jess can cook for me. And I
never cooked for anybody.
I'm like, Blakeley makes pasta. Like, that was pretty much the extent of the cooking in our house. And so, yeah, he literally would always tell me like how good you cooked and stuff. And that was one of the reasons that he preferred you. I was like,
See, he never said any of this to my face. He would tell me how he preferred you. You were a woman of God. Because he had the impression... Sheldon and I had a thing at one point, way before Tim got there. You remember Sheldon?
Mm-mm.
Big bald guy. He dated Kristen.
What was his job?
Fitness advisor.
Don't remember.
I think if you saw his face, you would. And then Davey and I went out a couple times. But for some reason, when he found out that something had happened with Sheldon, even though it was before his time, I was a slut. I had obviously slept with TC, Tony, anybody in that gym.
TC.
TC.
Ew.
Yeah. So, I mean, he didn't believe me about anything. Was convinced I had just made my rounds around the gym. And that was one thing he would hold against me. Well, Natalie's a woman of God, and she would never do this, and she's just mine. And I know that you did this. I was like, what? What? And I didn't tell him about Sheldon at first because he had already started with and I didn't feel like I needed to. He had already started the cutting me down, and, well, I'm not going to tell you I slept with somebody a long ass time ago. That has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
We weren't even dating at that point. Well, then I was a liar when he found out later. So, yeah, you can cook and you can do all these things, but you're a liar and I don't trust you. I trust Natalie. And
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
I think it was picking and I think I was just I was shy and I was a weak person anyway, but it was picking the weakest points and just hammering away.
Yeah, for sure.
The night that I made the fried potatoes, that I had already moved in at that point, had been cooking for hours, was like super excited, and we sat down, and the potatoes weren't what he wanted them to be. Like, they weren't burnt enough or like crisp enough or something. He was screaming at me.
Really?
Through the fork, through the plate, and I was crying. I was like, please don't kick me out. Like, I've already moved in all my stuff. Like, I'm sorry.
Had he already been that way with you, or was that like the first time that he was angry like that?
That was the first time he was angry like that.
After
like,
you moved in?
Like, yeah. Like,
it's convenient.
Yeah. He hadn't been hands-on, like, violent yet. That was after I met Belle for the first time, and we were at a hotel in Springfield. And even then, it was so brief. He had me up against a wall, just for a second, and he was like, see, you make me like this. I can't be with you. And then, like, left the hotel. Belle's sleeping in the other bed.
What was his reasoning for doing that?
I think he wanted to have sex, and I didn't want to.
So, I'm going to choke you.
Yeah.
Up against the wall.
And then it was just, he was angry, and I kept trying to be like, hey, I'm sorry, you know, and talk to him. Well, you're too much now. Back off. And then all of a sudden it was, you know.
Wow.
And somehow it was, well, I'm begging him to forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you upset.
Yeah. That's crazy. I never saw any of that. Like, that's what baffles me to this day, and like what is kind of scary to me, because I had no idea that he was capable of being that kind of person.
Well,
like,
if you stood your ground with him, I don't think that he felt like he could do that with you.
Yeah. But it's just insane that someone can be so two-faced, like have two completely different identities. Because to me, like, he was gentle. He didn't yell. Like, there were times that, like, if he was angry, like the birthday thing, he wasn't yelling. I was yelling. He wasn't yelling. He was just very, like, stern and just talking in a tone. But he never yelled, would never throw something. I mean, he didn't even, like, grab me aggressively. Like, he was gentle. And I didn't know about the violent past. So to me, it was, maybe he did that on purpose, like painted that picture. because he was almost like knight in shining armor, because I knew that he was strong and like, you know, he looked protective. He seemed like he would never hurt me or a fly, but if he needed to protect me, he could, which who doesn't want that, you know? But obviously he was actually a monster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it got worse from there. Especially when he would drink on and off, you know. He would be okay for a while, and then something would set him off, and we'd have a bottle of Fireball, and that was his thing. It was Fireball, and I could smell it, and I'd be like, oh my God, like this is gonna be a bad night.
When did he start drinking? When y'all were together?
It wasn't long after we got together, because he blamed it on finding out that I had something to do with Sheldon. Well, you lied to me.
It's literally
about it.
so dumb.
Yeah. And I make the joke all the time, like at the bar, they would let me do security sometimes. I'm like, yeah, like I know how to scrap, you know. If my ex taught me anything, it was how to take a hit. So like, I'm gonna whoop your ass. But like, I can joke about it now, but there were times where like I thought he was gonna kill me. And I was in the best shape of my life. But also he would point out my flaws, and we were very different sizes. I had always been insecure, always had an eating disorder. I had an eating disorder then, and I was like a $115, $120.
Wow.
I was a little bit heavier as a kid, and I remember the first time like we were intimate, and I had stretch marks, and he looked at me and he was like, "Are you sure you've never had a kid? You've never been pregnant?"
Oh my God.
And I lost it. And so I was so sick during that time. And so when he would come at me, I mean, I have horror stories. But like pin me on the floor with the heel of his foot kind of thing, like heel of his foot on my neck, like
On your neck?
oh yeah.
How did those, like, how did it escalate to that? Because you're saying, like, the first thing was you were not in the mood, so he felt the need to hurt you, pin you against the wall. And then was it always just, like, dumb stuff like that? Like, silly fights? Then he would just start hitting you?
It was always, when it got really bad, it was always going back to, I had a life before him. Like, I wasn't a virgin. Like, I had slept with people before.
He always blamed it on that.
Yeah. Well, I know
Wow.
that you slept with these people at the gym. I know that you did this, and I don't trust you. So I deleted my Facebook. I deleted all my social media. There was a time where I didn't have a cell phone. Like, we shared a cell phone, because I was like, you know, if I proved to him that like I'm not that person, there's nothing going on, this won't keep happening. And
Do you think that's why he went for younger girls?
I do.
To like get them before they were with men?
yeah, I do.
Oh, like he wanted someone
He
who...
wanted a virgin.
Ew, that's creepy.
Or someone who wasn't experienced.
Yeah. Or he just felt like, I think he wanted the power,
Because then you get the power.
this is mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody else has had this.
Wow. So, but that was also a way to isolate you, because
Oh yeah.
that's what happened. You're deleting your Facebook. You don't talk to anyone.
I lost all my friends.
Don't have a phone.
I didn't talk to my family, my parents, my sisters for like 4 or 5 years from the time we got together.
Why? Like, what was the reasoning for that?
Because my dad saw through it. He's like, I don't like him. I don't know why
okay.
you're doing this. He refused to meet him before we got married. I was like, hey, do you want to meet him before we do this? And my dad was like, no.
Yeah, so when you guys got married, he had, like I said, I came back, he broke up with me. I was just beside myself, so upset, but I got over it. I moved on. I even started talking to another guy for a while. And then, like, school started, like, it was November. And we were chilling at our house, like it was a casual evening, and
story.
yeah, And, well, this is one of the stories. And so we're chilling. It happened to be like all of our friends that knew him, like, were at our house too. But then we hear like a knock at the door, and we're just kind of like, who's going to get the door? Like, who's at the door? And one of the guys answers the door, and they like come over and they're like, I think it's Natalie's ex-boyfriend. No, it was Chris.
And I was like, it's Dan.
Okay. Well, you and Chris were trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then because you went and confirmed. Because Chris
Chris
said,
was
he was
like,
like,
I
I
know.
think it's, and
Like,
we
it's
were
a
like,
big guy.
no.
Yeah.
And then you went, that's when you were like, I think it's, we're like whispering. And I was just like, what? And so then I went and just stood outside, didn't let him in or anything. And he was just begging for me back and apologizing. I don't know what all he was saying, but he like just either in tears or almost in tears, like that level of like remorse. And
If this is the same night that I'm thinking of, he was also drunk. I think he was drunk.
he may have been, but I
Both.
didn't know because I was very naive. And when he told me that he had gotten sober after going to jail, I believed him. And I had never seen him drink or use any substances. Like, he was, from our interactions, he was always sober. And so I think he was drunk that night, but I just was completely oblivious to it. Because he also was so upset that,
hide it
you
for a
know,
while, too.
and I had never seen him upset, nor had I seen him drunk. So he was being weird. And so I just kind of talked to him for a while, and then he left. And somehow or another, I caved in at some point. Like, we either kept talking or he kept begging or something. And then we started hanging out again. And so it wasn't until I still didn't know he was drinking. He was, at this point now I know he was hiding it when we were hanging out. He either wasn't drinking around, like, before seeing me, or he was hiding it really well. And it wasn't until there was, and I don't even think I knew you were living there. Or maybe he told me you weren't, or you had moved out or something. But I thought you were out of the picture. And then he called me and said that you were at his house and like wouldn't get out. And so I needed to come get him. And I'm like, Blakeley, get in the car. And so, and I don't remember what all he said, but of course he made it sound like you were crazy, like you were about to kill him or something, like it was an emergency and I have to come get him. Mm-hmm. And so, and of course I'm brainwashed at this point. So I'm thinking like, yes, I'm going to come to the rescue. And so we get in my little car, she's in the back seat, and we pull up and he's outside with a bottle of Fireball. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, he's drinking? Like, that's stupid. So I'm like, why is he drinking? Like, he's an alcoholic. And so then he like gets in the car. I don't remember what he was saying. And then you came out pissed. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you were pissed, because I don't know what he was telling you other than the fact that he was getting in the car with me. And then you're like, pull down the window. And I was like, what is happening? And Blakeley's in the back and she's like, what is about to go down? And you proceed to tell me that you guys are married.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're
both like,
what? It was just, it was a moment where I was being bombarded with all of this information that I never knew. On top of that, the chaos, because that was like the moment that my eyes were opened, like this veil was torn of like, now I'm seeing the truth, like the real him,
and
or at least a glimpse of it.
That night that you remember happened so often after that. Like, that chaos was my norm for years after that.
Yeah. So I was just in complete shock, and I'm still brainwashed at the point that you're the bad guy. So I'm thinking like, well, we should take him away from her. And so we go to our house and he's drunk, passes out.
He's texting me, by the way, like during this, and he's like, don't worry, I won't sleep with her. I'm like, what?
Well, I don't think he could have if he wanted to.
Yeah.
And so then I started texting him from his phone because I saw that y'all were texting. And that was when you started telling me like things I didn't know, like that y'all had been seeing each other, that you would be with him and he would call me while you were together and you had to like be quiet, that you had found out about me a long time ago. And then I was like starting to believe it because he was passed out and we're sitting in the living room and we're like, and I'm telling her everything you're saying. And so we're like, but because she's just as brainwashed as I am. Because whenever he's at our house, he's charismatic, he's funny, he's charming, he's
convinced
silly.
you that I'm a crazy
Yeah,
bitch.
yeah. And so we're both sitting there like, can this be true? Like, can he be the crazy one and she's telling the truth? Like, there's no way. And then I remember, from my recollection, and I could be so wrong, but I was like right at the point of almost believing everything you were saying. And especially because the fact that he was drunk was like it was throwing me a huge curveball because I had this picture in my mind that he was so sober and Christian and he had gotten his life together and like it was just completely changing who I thought he was. So I was in a pivotal moment of like could have turned at that time. And then you said that you had found my underwear at his house. And I was like, no, she didn't. I don't leave around the house. Like, I pick up my stuff.
Because I said they were purple, and you were like, I don't like the color purple.
Yes, yes.
Well, there's another girl. I didn't know there was another girl.
Yes, that was the dumbest thing that made me not believe, oh, she's making all of it up. Because I don't buy purple stuff.
Well, I knew it wasn't mine, too, because they were like...
Weren't they like an extra small, and that's why you thought they were her?
Yeah,
yes,
I was like,
why do we
I
all
don't
remember
wear
that? It's such a small detail.
I remember that, and you were like, I would never wear purple thongs.
Yeah.
I was like,
It may have been mine, but I made it up in my head because it was easier to believe that you were lying than to believe that he was lying. So it was just a way for my brain to be like, oh no, because I would never buy purple, which is stupid.
Well, and then when he came home and he told me he was sorry later, he convinced me to, because I think you were still like texting me here and there at this point. He convinced me to text you and tell you that I had made everything up. Because he's like...
He put you on the phone.
Yeah, he's like, she knows people. He's like, if you really love me, then you'll do this for me. You'll protect me. Because she knows people. Blakeley knows people. They'll, my career, it'll be ruined. He's like, I'll have to leave Arkansas.
He was honestly right. I honestly think as much as I love the idea that you think I'm stronger than you, I don't think I was. I think I just had more of a risk. I was riskier for him to try to be violent with me because I did have a lot of people around me. Especially Mary, our other roommate.
yeah, you were in
Her dad owns Arkansas. And so he would have been the end of him. Because if she had found out, or if any of my friends had found out that he had hit me or anything like that, he would have been back in jail instantly. So it's probably what he meant with like she knows people.
But I did. I guess he put me on the phone and
Yeah.
I was like, I lied. I made it all up. And
Yeah, he put you on the phone and he said he was like, because he was trying to, because I had already told him. I was still, I think, kind of like testing the waters of what I believed. And I told him that you had told me everything that you did. And so I was kind of like seeing his reaction. Like, is it true? And he was telling me it wasn't, that you were lying, that you made it all up. And I didn't believe him. Like, I was just like, I was so confused that I was like, I just kind of don't ever want to talk to these people ever again. But that was when he, like, his way of convincing me was to put you on the phone. And you said that you made it all up because you wanted to make me hate him.
yeah.
And unfortunately, I believed that.
Well, he was good at what he did.
Yeah.
He was really good.
So as the violence escalated, what made you stay? And the reason I ask that is because when it comes to domestic violence, like, people from the outside will always say, like, well, I would have just left. Or why did she stay? Why didn't she just leave? And it's really easy for people who haven't been through it to say that. But it obviously is much deeper than that. So can you explain that from your point of view? Like, why didn't you leave? What made you stay? What made you continue to, like, put up with it, even though it was getting worse and worse, the violence?
There aren't a lot of resources for women. I mean, I think there's a women's shelter and things like that, but everyone knew him. So I tried to leave him once, or early on. I think it was like 2016, 2017. I ended up staying with my parents for a little while. I mean, I spiraled, but nobody believed me, because while it was happening, I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to make him look bad, like we're together. And if I did talk about it with my parents, he's like, well, they're never going to want us to be together. We're never going to have a normal life. You need to go back to him and tell him that you lied. So I had just played, cat and mouse with all these people for such a long time. Well, yes, he hit me, but no, I'm lying. He didn't hit me. It never happened. And then it was, I was constantly fighting with my parents. Well, I can't stay here. I didn't I didn't have any control over our daily finances. I barely had a car. I had given up everything to move in with him. I didn't have anywhere to go. So eventually it was just easier to go back home. And he was telling me, well, it'll never be like that again.
After he would hit you?
And then, there was Isabel. I fell in love with Isabel.
Yeah, his daughter.
And the first time I tried to leave, he had actually injected himself with enough insulin. I don't know if it was enough to kill him, but it was enough to make it look like he attempted suicide.
Oh my God.
So I was in the back of a cop car because they had picked me up. I had downloaded, there's an app. We were in the car together. Isabel was in the seat, in the seat in between us. We were in his dad's truck, and he was drunk. I picked him up off Dixon, and he told Isabel to close her eyes. Like, he was telling Isabel how much of a whore I was, and how he hated me, and he's like, close your eyes. And he was rearing up to hit me, and I was driving the truck. So I was like, no. It's like, I have my hand on this app. I was like, when I let it go, I said, it's gonna call the cops.
Wow.
And
what's the app called?
I don't remember now.
Okay, I'll find
it was
it.
made for kids, though. Like, the kids who are
Oh.
walking home from school.
Okay.
You keep your hand on there's a button. Put your thumb on the button, and if you let go, it triggers and lets the police department know where you are.
Okay.
It sends them your location.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were, and I feel bad about this too, but we were going maybe 5-10 miles an hour. We were just rolling down before you turn into the subdivision. And I opened the door, got out and ran, and I let go of the button. And I hid under somebody's car.
Oh my God.
And Fayetteville police picked me up, put me in the back of the car. We drove back to the house, and these cops are like going up to the door, and they're like, hey, we want to talk. Tim's telling him how crazy I am, and how everything I said was a lie, but he's being rude enough. He's just being that they're like, okay, they came back and they were like, we want you to file a police report. I wouldn't do it.
Did you ever file a report?
No, I should have.
What is that like? Because that happens a lot with women who are victims of abuse. Like, they are hesitant to file reports. What's the reasoning for not doing it in your mind?
I think at that time I had still believed that there was like a good side. And that maybe it was my fault and I was triggering him to relapse or to act the way he was. And then he had Isabel. Well, she needs a dad. She loves him. I can't take that, away from her. She's the one that helped me leave the second time, like this time. He was on meth this time. So he had gotten over COVID. I guess the Adderall was, and by the way, I have an Adderall prescription. I'd had it since college. He would have me go fill my Adderall and give it to him. So he would take that along with his and whatever benzo they put him on at the time. So he was on all kinds of things.
He was off and on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And
I saw a couple of glimpses of that towards the end of living here, but it wasn't that, unless it was and he was lying. But he was always saying he had like health issues and he would take like certain steroids.
He was taking Tren.
Or like, there was one time that we went to, I think it was the post office or UPS or something like that, and picked something up that was in a very sketchy like wrapper, like package.
It was anabolics.
And he said it was HGH. And I had never heard of that before. So he explained it. He's like, oh, it's just human growth hormone. Like any guy that you ever see that is like super buff takes this. Like it's
That's
natural.
True. He was on that, yeah.
So it may have been that, but yeah, then it was always like something, and it was never clear like what he was taking and why. Because I was always like, okay, well, how long are you supposed to take this? Like if you have a stomach issue, like from a month ago, why are you still taking this? Like it just never really made sense. But he never told me, or I never saw like these harder drugs or Xanax or anything like that.
They wouldn't give him Xanax anymore. I don't know if it was flagged in his chart or what. But after that, it was lorazepam. And that happened later on. That was like 2018. He had finally gotten someone to give him a lorazepam prescription. And then when we moved to Springfield, it was, taking the meds from his parents, like his mom and dad. His dad was on all kinds. Morphine, Xanax, because of the car accident. His mom was on oxycodone. So...
His dad... I thought his dad was dead.
Now
He's dead?
that happened right before I left.
Oh.
Yeah. It happened within a week of each other, I think. Week or two. Like, his mom died first. And then his dad died. At that time, he had started the meth after COVID. Because, he got COVID and we thought he was going to die. And I was like, surely this man is going to wake up and have a new outlook on life.
He went through, like, a crazy COVID thing where he was in a coma.
He was on life support. He was on the ECMO.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like speak to him for a long time. I moved back to Houston and had no contact with him. After a short while of being back, like there was really no contact. And then he would call me or text me pretty much every 6 months. And just kind of tell me the same BS every time, that he was going to leave you and that he was going to move to Houston and we were going to be together. And like, it was just, he would update me on his life and like what's been going on. And after, I would say maybe a year to a year and a half, I was fully unbrainwashed that I didn't believe him. It was just kind of like maybe old habits of picking up the phone. And he would always call from a random number. So I wouldn't know it was him until after answering. He called me after he had gotten out of the coma. And was just being real weird and like acting like I knew something. And I was like, what is going on? Why are you calling me? Why are you talking to me? And he's like, well, I thought you knew. I'm like, knew what? He's like, I almost died.
Because he was on the news in Springfield. He was. It was a big deal.
Well, yeah. At first I'm thinking like, well, you probably almost die like every other day. Like, is this really important? But then he explained to me like what actually happened. And he thought I knew because of Facebook or something like that. Because I guess maybe the news or people had been sharing it.
I did.
And so he thought I had seen it at some point. And I had no idea. But then, continue. After COVID.
That's when he got on meth.
He got on meth.
Yeah. He started the meth. And then things got really bad. And that's when... So after his parents died, there was a morning that he was coming down. I don't know. But he hit me with a baseball bat. And that's what the scar is, like across my forehead.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And just relentlessly, like, went at me. Told me he was going to make it count. He was going to kill me.
Did you, like, break your skull? Or, like...
I got 15 stitches and 3 staples. So it went up into the head. My dog saved me, actually. Yeah.
How?
He went after Tim. I mean, and then Tim went up. I guess the dog scared him. Tim went up and he hit one of the lights on the ceiling fan and broke it. And it was like he came to. And he looked at me and I was bleeding. He's like, oh my God. He's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean everything I said. Yeah. But he was accusing me. He's like, you're the reason my parents are dead. Like, you killed my mom. You killed my dad. And
What?
meanwhile, Metallica's blaring because he thinks that, that'll keep Isabel from hearing what he's doing and the way he's screaming at me. And there's a saying that, like, you stay until you hate them. That's what I did. And at that point, it was getting to that. But it still wasn't, as sad as it was, that wasn't enough to, like, make me go. It was, and you needed to know that to know this. He was on meth. He was crazy. He had knocked down every room, like every door in our house, but Isabel's. And so there was a night where he didn't realize he had taken all of his benzodiazepines. He was high, couldn't find the bottle, was convinced I hid it. So he's like knocking shit down, he's breaking shit. Belle and I are hiding in her room with her door closed and it's locked. And she's getting ready to go on vacation with her friend. So, and she like looks at me and she's like, why are you still here? She's like, why don't you leave? She's like, I hate him.
How old was she?
13. I mean, it was just like...
So she was probably getting old enough to really understand what was going on.
Yeah. And I mean, it was right before that or right after she had heard him like call me fat, like hit me and knock me down, and she turned around and slapped him and she said, you don't ever put your hands on her.
Wow.
And he went to raise his hand at her, and I think it clicked that like that was his kid, that was his daughter, and he stopped. He's like, well, I'm the parent, you don't tell me what to do.
Wow.
And when it's like she gave me permission to go.
Because I'm sure you didn't want to leave her.
No, I didn't. No.
And as sick as it is, he probably knew that.
She's the one that found him the first time when he had injected the insulin. Like, she was so little. She had to call 911.
Wow. Where did he get insulin?
He was
Don't you
taking...
have to get that off the black market?
What? Wait, why do people take insulin that don't need it? Does it make you high?
No. Working out.
Oh.
He would take a little bit after working out, and I guess it helped.
Or it's a way to like fake a suicide.
Yeah.
So if you kill someone, you put insulin in them, it looks like they committed suicide.
So there's a time that you were working out at the gym that I came to see him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember.
At the gym?
Yeah. I came in, and I guess you were in his office. And immediately, like, beelined out when you saw me come in. But, like, Danny was there. Arden was there. And I just remember, like, seeing red. And Tony came up to me, and he was like...
Was this when I still worked there, or this was later?
I don't know if you still work there.
Okay.
But it was after we got married.
Oh, then I didn't.
Yeah, you guys were still kind of seeing each other then.
Yeah.
And I think he just told you, like, keep it a secret. And Tony came up to me and he was like, hey, Jess, he knows what he's doing. Like, it's okay. Just give him a chance or something. I don't know what bull he had fed Tony, but Tony had caught on to you and him while we were together. And
No, Tony knew. And Tony, I don't know what he thought, but Tony was the only person that Tim and I could hang out with around. Like, for some reason, maybe Tony was like down with it. Like, he was didn't care that Tim was like cheating and bouncing back and forth, or maybe he was on my side. I don't know, but for some reason we were allowed to like be normal in front of Tony.
Yeah. Well, Tony would come to me and...
But Tony also is a cheater.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. He's like, you keep my secrets, I'll keep yours.
But he saw me like spiraling, and so he would try to comfort me every now and then. And I went home that night. Tim told me to leave. He didn't want me at the gym. And because everybody knew at that point what was going on, I think. And so Arden was like trying to keep an eye on me. Danny was trying to keep an eye on me. I went back home. He came back home. And I don't remember what was said, but he got up from the table. He's like, I'm going to go be with Natalie. And I mean, just the stuff that he was calling me and telling me was, he knew how to use his words. And at some point, I don't remember how many bottles of Unisom we had, but I took them all. And I remember like driving away and then coming back, and he didn't believe that I had took any pills. And I was sitting on the couch and I was trying to tell him, and it's like my nervous system was shutting down. I couldn't speak to him anymore. And I think he saw me and realized that something was going on. He drove me to the hospital, and we're sitting there and they're getting my vitals and they're asking me questions. And he's the nurse, he's like, did you do it on purpose? And I just looked up and Tim looked at me. He's like, you need to tell him no. And I don't know what made me like nod, but I did. I was like, yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if it was medically induced or if I had taken enough, but I don't remember the next 3 days there. I think they had to pump my stomach, is what Tim was telling me. When they say that people know in a coma, like what's going on, they can hear you, they can. He's saying, I'm your sunshine, or you're my sunshine, the whole 3 days. I hate that song.
What was he singing?
I hate that song. But I remember waking up, and immediately they threw me back in an ambulance and took me to Springwoods. I was there for about 2 weeks. And Tim's calling me on the outside, and he's like, I love you. It's going to be okay. You're going to come home. Everything's going to be okay. I think you were there. Meanwhile.
That's very possible. I do remember you going there because I think, kind of everyone like knew what happened. I don't know if I heard about it through him or through someone else, but I remember coming home like after hearing about it and like telling my roommates and being like, she's going to be at my job. She's going to be a patient at my job. Like, what am I going to do? And it was just weird. The whole thing was weird. But then you end up going to Springwood. So I was like, okay, good. It's a better hospital anyway.
I mean, there was a time where I thought that's the only way I was going to get out of it. I was like, I can't leave. I don't have anywhere to go. One of us is going to have to die.
So what was your, like, that was your thought when you, like, did you want to die?
I didn't want to deal with what I was anymore. I thought I loved him. I didn't think I was ever going to have what I wanted. And it hurt. Like, I knew you guys were, like, seeing each other. He was pretty. He knew I wasn't going to leave him. He was like, well, I'm only going to date her for so much longer. There were times where I'd be at home, like, waiting for him to come home. I knew he was out with you. I knew he was dating you. I gave him my car a couple times. I remember you guys went to a cabin one year for his birthday. I was at home making his birthday cake. Still messaging him. He told me that he was helping you move back to Houston.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you guys were at a cabin until way later.
It was like by Beach Lake.
Yeah, that's all I remember too, the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like maybe a couple hour drive. It was kind of far. But it was a lake that had a beach.
You go out past the giant ice cream cones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy because I didn't, like, I just keep using the word brainwashed. Like, that's like the best, closest word. Hypnotized is kind of maybe the better word. By like what he would tell me and the story, and like the manipulation was so deep at that point that I really thought that I was like his like rescuer. And I thought that us being together, like the more he could spend time with me, that I was like saving him from
Me.
you, from an abusive relationship that he was the victim in. Like, that's what I thought. So I didn't even see it as like cheating or like being the other woman or like doing anything wrong.
Well, how could you?
I was so, which is not, it was very wrong. But I was so victimized. I was just not even myself. I was literally like, it was an out of body thing, which is probably why I don't remember a lot of it. That I really thought that story that he sold me. And it doesn't even make sense, like when you say it out loud. Because if he was such a victim and like in such a bad situation, he was fully capable of leaving. Like, what are you gonna do? You know? So I don't know why I was complicit in that. I really don't.
Well, think of how young y'all were.
Exactly.
So
You
young.
were just believing what someone older than you and had
Yeah.
authority over you.
I mean, even the cabin. I thought this is going to be great for him, like, to get away. Maybe he'll, like, have some clarity. Maybe he'll, like, have some space and then, like, work up the courage to, like, get away from you. And it wasn't really about, like, I didn't know you. It wasn't about, like, I dislike her. I think she's a bad person. It was just what he was always telling me,
Played us against each other.
that you were, like, ruining his life, basically. And that, like what I was saying earlier, that he would always say he never should have gotten married, that you manipulated him into getting married that night, which I left that part out. The knocking on the door night was the night you got married, which I didn't know until probably years later, a long time. And so, yeah, it was just always this narrative that he was going to leave you. He never should have done it. Was going to get an annulment, but there were always these like reasons or excuses for why it had to be prolonged. Like he had to get off probation, or he had to wait until he had enough money to get his own place, or until the lease was up, or until he could have a car, or like there was always something.
But see, when we were fighting, that's when things escalated, is when I would try to leave. That's when he really got violent. That's when he would start, he would charge at me from across the room. We had so many, I don't know if you saw, we had so many holes in the wall at that house. In the garage, in the bedroom. Because he had punched or knocked me into the wall. And
what was like the most violent like thing? Like you said, at one point you thought you were gonna die.
Well, when he hit me with a bat. I mean, that was probably the worst one. And it's always like when he would hit me sometimes. And that's why part of me didn't believe that, he was totally unaware of what he was doing. He held back just enough sometimes, because he could have killed me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he held back enough to where he didn't.
Or even like when you said that he would play music. That's an awareness that what he's doing is wrong, because he doesn't want. Obviously, he had a respect for Isabel, or like there was something about her that was like a boundary that he wouldn't hit her. So he knew. It's not like he was one of those like sociopath serial killers that like don't have emotions.
And she says she knew. Through the music, through everything else, she could hear it. She said she could see it. I'd wake up and she could see it on my face. Like the makeup wouldn't cover it up. The picture that's on my Facebook.
Yeah.
That is, that night, I remember we were driving. And a lot of people don't talk about this too. Like, he was driving first. And being unsafe with someone in the car, I mean, that's a form of abuse too.
Yeah. Like, because he was drunk.
Yeah. And I remember him driving me around Fayetteville, and he showed me all the places he could hide my body where no one would find me.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, it was just back and forth, like, take your seatbelt off, and he would like gun it towards a telephone pole.
Oh my gosh.
and stopped just in time. Like, he knew. And I got out of the car. He ended up talking me back in the car. He wanted me to drive. So I remember driving home, and it was late. It was like 2 or 3. But he was yelling at me. It was about TC, about Tony. I mean, just anything he could find. And I saw 2 cop cars as we were driving home. And so I started to like kind of swerve because I was trying to get pulled over. And it didn't work. I mean, it didn't work. And then I think he...
What were you thinking was going to happen, like, when you got pulled over?
That they'd see how bruised my face was. I mean, I had already started... I took that picture in the bathroom before we got in the car. Because he beat the shit out of me there. Was like, come on, we're going for a ride. Took me directly to the liquor store. Made me go in the liquor store with him. I looked at the clerk at the liquor store, and I mean, I'm crying. My face is all up, and I looked at her. I was like, help me. And she looked at me and just bagged and handed it to him. That was my first, like, nobody's...
Oh, that just gave me goosebumps. Because I'm picturing you being 22, 23, however old you were, like...
I looked young in that picture.
Yeah. It's a college town. It's an older man who's clearly drunk or drinking.
And that was before he really got started that night.
I mean...
Yeah.
That's sad.
And then later on, tried to get pulled over. I don't know if they didn't see me or what, but it didn't happen. And then he found out what I was doing, and he's like, hey, Jess. And I remember, like, looking over at him and hit me square in the nose.
While you were driving?
Like a man. Like, not a slap, like, but it was enough to not break my nose. Like, that's what I'll remember. I remember, like, gushing blood, but he didn't break anything. And so I was like, hey, we need to pull over to a gas station. Like, I need to clean up. Because I thought, you know, I can get in there. I could tell somebody. He knew. No. Made me go all the way home. So we get home. I remember, I don't know how. I got him to, like, get away from me for a little bit. Like, he went in the room, laid down. And at one point I was able to sneak out. And I got back in the car. I remember just driving the car. I think all the way to Springdale or Rogers, and parked the car and slept in the car all night.
Wow, just to get away from him.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about, like, ways to get help? Or when you're in that mindset, do you think that that's not an option? Like, do you think about, like, knocking on a stranger's door and asking for help?
The first time I did. But I think after that night, I was like, there's nobody.
You think they won't believe you, or you think he'll...
Or I think people are more comfortable with just turning away.
Mm.
Like the clerk at the liquor store, she didn't want to get involved.
Yeah. Wow.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I'm sure she was, like, older. That's crazy. And that picture, did you post the picture?
Later.
Okay.
Like, recently. Before that, I just kept it.
Okay.
Like,
you never showed it to anyone?
I emailed it to my parents.
Oh.
And I ended up deleting it off of my phone after he convinced me to. But I guess they kept it.
Hmm.
And the day that I was leaving in Springfield, and I mean, it wasn't even a violent streak the day that I was decided to leave in Springfield. I'd come home, and we were already losing the house. I was the only one working. He refused to get a job. And I come home, and he's on Facebook dating. And I lost my shit. I was like, you know, I'm done. And it's something so stupid that finally made me, like, walk out. But at that point, I'd already had everything. I had a lady at work who was like, hey, you can stay at my lake house. You have somewhere to go. That was just kind of the push I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loaded the dogs up, and enough clothes to like get me by. I left everything else behind, and I left.
What happened after that? Like, did you ever consider going back?
No. There was a minute where I felt guilty because I think the electricity got shut off shortly after I left. He in the water, he like texted me and he's like, you know, you left me here to die. He's like, I don't have any water, I don't have any power, and so I like DoorDashed some water bottles and Gatorade and stuff like that. But he's not my responsibility. That's a grown-ass man.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm perfect either. I mean, I'd never been with somebody, you know, I'd never really had a real relationship. So when we would argue and things like that, I didn't give him all that space because I was scared. I was like, well, what can I do to fix it? I'm sorry, you know. I would hover, but nothing I ever did warranted the violence.
No.
That came out of that.
No. And that's like a fawning response. So usually when you're like in a fight or flight situation, there's fight, flight, but there's also fawning. And fawning is typically what women do when you're like your life is being threatened. Because if you're up against a man or someone who can kill you or someone more powerful, like you really can't fight or flight in that situation. Like you can't run faster than him and you can't beat him. So fawning is what most women do. And it's like well, I'm sorry, like, what can I do? Like, what, you know, how can I be better? Because it's just a response, because doing that will typically get them to back off. But it also trains your brain to think that if I do this, if I fawn, then he'll stop hurting me, and then he'll be nice for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then he manipulates you after that into thinking, like, as I'm sure he would say stuff like, sorry, it'll never happen again.
It's different now, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So after you left, did he ever reach out?
A couple times. Yeah, he would text me and like tell me he loved me, and he was still thinking about me, or he was praying that we'd get back together. And then I blocked him. At one point, he could only message me on Cash App. You know how you can send money and send a message with it. So he'd send like $2. Just to like send a message. Yeah. It didn't last long because, you know, he wasn't about that. But yeah, I haven't talked to him since. I spent Christmas with Isabel. She came and spent her birthday with me. Her and Sonny lived with me for a minute.
Oh, wow.
But I haven't talked to him at all. I know he wanted Isabel to come to Springfield and spend some time with him. And I told Isabel it was totally up to her and how she felt, but I wouldn't be alone with him.
Yeah, good for you.
And she said no. So.
Does she see him, just her?
I think he came to Fayetteville a couple weeks ago, and Sonny let him visit. But Isabel says she doesn't want to be alone.
So, do you know anything about his, like, situation now?
Oh, I know he wrecked his BMW.
BMW?
Yeah, so he wrecked our car that we had, and then decided to buy a stick shift BMW with the insurance money because he knew I couldn't drive stick shift.
Oh.
So when I was in Springfield, he had convinced me, you know, it was a good idea to share a cell phone. And we had a stick shift car that I couldn't drive. So that was another way, like, I wasn't going anywhere. Yeah.
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 I mean, before that, we lived in a hotel for a while. We lost the house because he left Fitness for Less and couldn't hold a job. He was drinking and.
Wow. And so now you don't really know, like, what he's.
Isabel said he was in a halfway house for a little while, and I don't know if he's finally got a place or.
Do you ever, like, have fear that he'll, like, find you or something like that?
I did.
You did.
I did. But I'm not scared of him anymore. Listen, I'd go to prison. It'd be worth it. You get caffeine and nicotine in prison. It'd be worth it. Because I'm not the weak woman that I was.
I was gonna say, what changed? How have you changed? Like, you obviously got to the point of, I guess, hating him enough to leave.
I mean, I feel like I was shy when I met him, but I don't know what happened. I mean, I was in the military, and when I met him and I was with him, I wasn't the same person. I was so submissive, and because that's what I'd been taught. That's what you're supposed to do in a relationship. That's what the woman does.
Is that the way your parents were?
Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to be a good wife.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for me. At least not with him.
That's funny that you said that. Just that, like, triggered another memory that he would tell me that like, you, ooh, that makes me mad. Like, he would tell me, like, you wanted to be a good wife, and that I just wasn't built that way. Like, I couldn't be the kind of wife that you could be. I need to think about that. Wow. Maybe that's why I kind of have issues with.
Yeah, it's not you. I mean, the whole 7 years we were married, we didn't celebrate my birthday. I didn't get a card. I didn't get a cake. I baked his cake from scratch every year, though.
Wow.
The year he got me a ring was like a year before I left. Like a ring. And I got to wear it, I think, a month before we were about to lose the house. We didn't have rent. And so he was like, hey, I need to take that back.
Wow.
I said, okay. And now the guy I've been seeing now, it makes me really emotional. I didn't think, I was like, I'm never going to live with somebody ever again. I'm never going to date. I'm never going to get married. I have not touched a door handle since I've been with this man. Like, nobody's ever opened a door for me.
Oh, I thought you meant you were afraid of door handles.
No.
I was like, wait, how do you get in and out of places?
No, sorry.
I was thinking about the knocking down the door thing, that you were like traumatized from doors.
No.
Oh my gosh.
That's such a small thing, and it doesn't like, people look at me and think
huge.
I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
Nobody's ever opened a door for me. He's the first one to buy me flowers.
Wow.
Like, I cried. Like, I'm gonna cry now.
You can cry.
But so different. Like, the contrast is just.
Like, he's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, I didn't know they made you.
True.
Like, where did you come from? Yeah. And I mean, I've been open with him about all this, before, and I've told him that it's taken me a while, but like, I'm not a man hater. I don't hate men. I don't think it's every man, and but he's healed parts of me that he didn't break. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
To like take on that baggage for somebody, and I'd probably marry him. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's a true, like, man, like what you just said, like, healed parts of you that he didn't break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are your, like, plans for the future now? Because I feel like something that I've thought about for a while is, like, he just stole so much time from you.
Yeah, I feel like he stole my innocence.
Yeah, well, stole your innocence and, like, your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were basically in your 20s, like, fighting for your life and your sanity. Most people are, like, just getting drunk, getting drunk, having fun. I mean, working, but, like, starting your career, like, it's not at all what you were doing.
Leaving was the hardest thing I ever did, because I left, I think I had $300 cash, and I think I have more dog toys than I do shoes, like right now. I completely started over. I've never had a credit card, growing up, so the credit cards were like the devil.
Yeah.
So leaving Tim, I had no credit. Like my credit score, like none. Getting an apartment, finding a place to rent was a nightmare. I didn't have a bank account. All of the bank accounts were in his name. So I think that's another reason people don't leave. Like, it was hard.
Yeah.
I got with him at such a young age that I hadn't established anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out as an adult, oh, what do I do now? But I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah. So just kind of like rebuilding.
Yeah.
As you've been dating this guy, what have been the challenges? I mean, has it been hard, or what has it been like going from that to the dating world?
I try to act tough. Like, I'm not scared because I went through it. I'm scared. People scare me. I won't say men scare me. People scare me. Just the things that we're capable of.
Yeah.
I don't know you. So being one-on-one with somebody like that, I wasn't ready to do that for a while. That was something. And then this guy has a son, so I was really reserved with that too. Well, I'm going to fall in love with your kid, and then I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of what happened with Tim. I can't have kids. I'm not able to. So, but that's what I wanted forever. I wanted to have a family, to be a wife, to have children.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Have you gotten to meet his son?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he's beautiful. But
there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the lovely tattoo on my neck. Tim did not like tattoos.
When did you get that?
Right after I left him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had always wanted tattoos. He was like, "Nah, I don't like them." Kind of let it go. And then I mentioned a neck tattoo once. He was like, "That would ruin you." He's like, "You wouldn't be pretty anymore." I said, "Bet." So I started working at Genesis in Kansas City. And one day on my lunch break, I went to 4 different tattoo shops before I found one who would do it the same day.
Really?
I told him what I wanted and
after
why.
You left?
Yep.
Okay.
Why I wanted it. He did it for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And your arm?
Yep. You know the story behind Medusa, right?
Not really.
Tattoos.
Victims of sexual assault. And a lot of people don't think, like, if you're married, it's not, it is. And, mine started back when I was 17. Like, my military recruiter was actually kicked out of the military for rape and sexual assault. I was the first one to come
assaulting
forward.
you?
And then, yeah, and a bunch of other female recruits. But
Wow.
I was the one that turned him in, yeah. I wasn't even 18.
Oh my God.
Told Tim about that. Tim liked to use that against me too. So, when we were good and he was happy and everything was okay, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But drinking, and he'd be like, "I bet you let him on."
Like it was your fault.
Why didn't you say no? Why didn't you do anything? I was a kid.
He should know saying no doesn't work.
Yeah.
There was one time I looked at him when he was drinking and he was the way he was, and I remember his eyes got really dark, and I was like, "Tim, are you okay? Like, it's okay. I'm sorry. I love you." And he like looked at me and he was like, "I'm not Tim anymore."
What?
I'll never forget that, ever. And I think about like the way he prays and the way he would beat me and recite Bible verses to like justify it. The man was evil.
Do you think he really was evil?
Yeah.
Why do you think he did what he did?
No, maybe not in a supernatural sense, but yes, I don't think he...
I think there's only one kind of evil, which is a supernatural evil. It comes from, it's demonic.
Right.
So, I'm not asking you because I think he's not. I think it's 100% a possibility.
Okay.
You know, that someone can be evil or be possessed or have so many demons around them that it makes them act a
There
certain
was
way.
something wrong with him.
Especially when you're altering your state of mind as much as he was.
For
Something
sure, yeah.
wrong with him. As many times too as this man has cheated death, something wants him alive. And
Wow.
I don't know. I've never experienced fear or the feelings that I had with him like that ever.
Did you ever try to like because this is just the way that I am. Like if I go through a situation with a guy that doesn't make sense, or he hurt me or cheated, or like I try to make sense of it, of like why people do the things the way they do. Did you ever wonder that about him? Like try to figure out, or you know him way better than I do. So do you have any inclination as to why he is the way he is?
I used to wonder, and I used to think that there was a good, you know, and that maybe he had just been through some stuff, but the more I caught him, and I mean he lied all the time. The more I caught him in lies, and when he was supposed to be having a heart-to-heart, you know, when we would have these talks, and I'm like, okay, you know, I understand. Well, that was a lie. I found out later on. This moment we're supposed to be having, you know.
Was he ever abused?
No, he watched his mom be abused, and he used to talk about how that affected him.
Yeah.
Well, how could you turn around and
Do it.
Yeah.
and for a long time, I mean, I understand that we were like angry with each other for a long time. And I have been wanting to talk to you for a very long time. I was scared because he made it sound like you hated me. I mean, which is okay. He had us both believing a lot of different things. But from time to time, I've thought about that. And like, you were younger than me, and I didn't know you very well. But it's almost, I'm glad it was me and it wasn't you.
No, I mean, that's just
And
by chance.
Right. And I don't mean that in a way to like, that has helped me deal with it too. Like, I'm glad it wasn't. I made it out, you know what I mean? Like, I made it, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't change anything now. Because I am the way that I am.
Yeah, and the mental, I can honestly say, like, the mental, again, I just can't find a good word, like, the mental manipulation, the mind games, I mean, I guess mental abuse. I mean, to be consistently lying to someone to get them to believe something that's so completely untrue so that they do what you want them to do, that's mental abuse. I mean,
He's a narcissist through and through.
Oh, he invented narcissism. Like, yeah.
That's why he kept y'all enemies, because if you talked, you'd both know the truth.
100%.
If he kept you hating each other, he could keep both of you at the same time.
Yeah, and he found a way to, he found like what would work with each of us to make us not talk to each other.
Yeah.
And while they were different things, it was like the same common goal. And I can say, like, and I didn't experience any of the physical abuse. I was oblivious to all of it, literally until you called me however many months ago that was. And because even the one time that people were hearing, you mentioned that earlier, like about abuse and like people around the gym and stuff, and I had heard about it, I still didn't believe it. Because when I confronted him about it, he said that you were making stuff up because you were trying to make him look bad and trying to get him in trouble with his probation officer. And I believed that. That's like how deep, and I think everyone believed it. Everyone around us. Which is crazy to me, being an adult now and thinking about if I were to see that with a 20-something-year-old, that I would believe the older man that looks like he's been in a couple fights. But like that mental abuse and brainwashing goes so deep, and it doesn't really go away. I don't know if you've experienced that, but even like after the COVID thing, I was mad at you all over again because you didn't call me. Like, you didn't tell me that he was dying. And I remember talking to one of my friends who also knew Tim back in college and being like, I just don't understand. Like, what if he had died and I never would have known, or never got to, like, go to the funeral, or, like, even though I didn't really care that much about Tim, it was like I was regressing back into, like, 8 years into the past. And I was, like, having all these emotions come up about, like, why didn't anyone tell me, like, just whatever. And she was like, well, Natalie, like, that's his wife. Why would she call you? And I was like, oh, yeah. And I kind of snapped out of it, and I was like, you're right. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I was going back into that brainwashing of that I had some sort of entitlement, because he did the opposite. He used, like, my things I was confident in. He almost built me up to this point of entitlement to keep me around, to make me think that like I said, like I was some sort of savior for him, saving him from the evil Jessica. And he did the opposite to you. He, like, cut you down, making you think that you were just so beneath me that you were just going to have to sit around and watch it happen.
Yeah.
Which both were completely untrue.
And I still hated the fact that you hated me. Like, he, because he told me. And I mean, as angry as I was with you, I hated that. I hated the thought that, like, you hated me. And sometimes I thought, like, well, what if we had been friends?
Yeah.
Like, could we have saved each other a lot of grief?
Yeah.
Before he stepped in?
What do you want to say to, like, women who might be in your situation, or the situation you were in, or, like, who have come out of it? Like, what do you want to say to anyone who has been a victim of this kind of violence?
It's not your fault, and it's not for nothing. Like, I feel like I didn't hear a lot about it growing up. And I feel like if I had, or if I had been more educated, like, maybe it wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stigma around it. People don't want to talk about it. People are embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I was so weak and I let it happen to me. I still think about things that I like let slide or I let happen. I'm like, how?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm embarrassed to tell people. And but if I can, then I can get it out, and if one person hears, like, what I went through and they get away, like, worth it.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it either. I mean, I never was aware of any, like, violent relationships growing up. I mean, I definitely didn't.
Well,
I definitely was not aware of any sort of, like, men who would do that kind of thing, like manipulate younger women. I mean, I really didn't think much of the fact that he was older at all, or my boss. I never really thought twice about it. Like, at first, we were like,
I think those are the
oh my
first
God.
two things I thought about.
I mean, it was like, at first, it was like, it was more of just like, oh my gosh, like he's older. Like, it was not like, I mean, it's like if you're a freshman in high school and a senior likes you.
mm-hmm.
But it wasn't creepy. It wasn't like, is he a I never considered, is he a predator? Like, is he a violent? Is, like, just never considered the things that might be obvious to other people, or that would be obvious to me now.
The predator thing didn't really kick in until later, and when I was in therapy, and it's like, yeah, like,
that didn't kick in until after I spoke to you.
She asked me about Isabel, like, what I would do, if it were Isabel, and that's when it clicked. I'm like, no, like, we were children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should have never happened.
Yeah. It definitely should have never happened. And I don't think I'll ever understand why nobody
Stopped it. There were people that
Especially
encouraged it.
But everyone at that gym knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those people were adults.
When I left him the first time, a lot of them were like, hey, you need to give him another chance. He's really sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
I think Tony was the one that I showed that picture to. And I said, this is what happened to me. This is what he did.
Like, when it happened, or way later?
When it happened. And Tony said that he talked to Tim. Tim said that Tony threatened him, you know, if he ever hurt me again, you know, he'd hurt him. But Tony was one of the ones that told me to give him another chance, that he really loved me. And I was like,
Wow.
okay.
And Tony was like around the same age as him.
Mm-hmm.
So should have known better.
Yeah, he has kids. He had 2 little ones at the time. And a wife. I think the moral of the story is, with that also, is that, like, someone who's a predator and an abuser, it doesn't just affect the victim. Like, they are really good at convincing and brainwashing everyone around them. Like I said, my friends who were very far removed from the situation also were brainwashed. Like, when I told Blakeley after our conversation, like, she was just as stunned as I was. That's like that's hard for me to digest. Like, thinking, I mean, all of it's hard to digest, but like, even though the memory is very fuzzy of like what him and I had, like, my deep in my gut, like, it, if someone were to ask me, like, really quickly off the bat, like, what were the most significant relationships I ever had, like, he would be number 1. And there's definitely like a 2 and 3, but like, what I had with him was the most like it invoked the most emotion in me, and it was just the most intense. And like, I keep going back to that breakup was the most intense, like, probably the most intense emotional experience I've ever had. So it makes me think that he loved me so much, despite the fact that I'm sitting here saying, like, he never told me that until later, which was more of a manipulation thing to try to, like, get me back. Mm-hmm. But
and I mean, I could be wrong.
No, I think you're 100% right.
I don't understand how there's no way that I could ever hurt someone like that.
Yeah.
That I was supposed to love, or threaten to kill him. I think it was after the first time that he got violent with me, or a couple times. I was always trying to, like, make these, like, grand gestures. And you know how Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, and mm-hmm. I did that for him one night. Like, I brought a bowl and explained to him what I was doing, and, you know, told him I loved him, and it was, and he cried then, and I don't know if the tears were genuine then, like, if he genuinely felt bad about what had happened and what he was doing, and but I've never forgotten that day either.
Wow. Why did you decide to do that?
I loved him, and I truly thought that, you know, I was willing to see past everything, and it's like, you know, I wanted him to know that I thought he was a good man, and I believed him when he felt guilty, and it's like, I don't want you to feel guilty, it's over, you know. I wanted to show, I thought I could show him what real love was. Like, I really, truly loved him, and I know now that, like, and I was so young, you know.
It sounds like almost like you thought you could love him into, like, being a good person.
Yeah.
And, like, save him.
Yeah.
From himself.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want to say in regards to your story, in regards to just, like, violence in general, to me, anything?
I'm sorry that you went through what you did, because you went through, it may not have been the same thing, but he hurt you too.
Yeah.
And knowing that, like, I played a part in it, I've wanted to tell you I'm sorry for a long time. Because you shouldn't have gone through that either.
I appreciate that. And I'm sorry as well. I mean, we shouldn't have to apologize to each other.
No, but we're not going to get it from him.
the biggest thing in retrospect, no, we're not going to get it from him. The biggest thing in retrospect that I am sorry for, that has changed me moving forward, is just not being so damn ignorant. Because, like, the fact that, like, we didn't see the signs. Like, there were so many, we've talked about, like, so many people around us that didn't say anything or didn't recognize what was going on. But I was one of those people. Like just not paying attention and just being so absorbed with what I wanted and so tunnel vision on him that I couldn't even see what was happening to you. That's like my biggest regret, because honestly, if anybody could have stopped him from doing what he was doing to you, it was probably me. And I was just oblivious. I was not caring enough to like wonder. Maybe in that one moment where I wanted to talk to you, I probably was wondering, like, is she okay? Like, something's weird. Or with the night that we were texting. But still, I guess probably my pride, my selfishness, like, just took over. But that's my biggest regret. It's not like humbling myself for long enough to wonder, like, is she okay? Is something going on that's not okay? Like, it, with her. Because I obviously knew what he was doing to me. So I'm sorry for that. We were young and dumb, but I wasn't that dumb. Like, I could have manned up a little bit.
Well, and no man should have made me feel the way I did. And you asked me at one point if I truly felt like I wanted to die. I mean, a lot of that relationship I did, and I mean that there's mental health awareness, but
Yeah.
and I mean I tried a couple times, but the thought that, I had isolated everyone, I had cut everyone out of my life, and he would have won in death. He probably would have been the only one at my funeral had I succeeded. Nobody probably would have known. I mean,
The isolation, yeah.
That's a big deal.
Well, I'm proud of you for where you are now. I mean, you're impacting people just by telling your story. And so, not to say that, like, it's a good thing you went through that, but God has his hand over it. And there were definitely angels surrounding you, because you could have died multiple times. At your expense or at his,
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below, because I want to hear what you said. See you next time.
Thank you.